Hey there, and this is Kathy with the Traveling Homesteader and Gyroscope Farm. As you can see, I'm out in my vineyard. This is actually my mom's garden and her end of the grape arbor of her garden. And today it's been raining, and back in the farther distance you might see another vineyard that's actually a wine producing vineyard, and it's been harvest season. And with the rains that we just got last night, I'm going to be harvesting our grapes for juice, while the remaining while the wineries are getting their grapes for their wines. I'm getting mine just for grape juice. And so the only difference between grape juice and wine is the time that it has to sit. And so in my case, I'm going to be steaming my grapes after I pick them, and we'll be showing you that in just a little while. We'll also be talking a little bit about some different grape varieties and how that affects the taste of your juice or your wine. So stay tuned, and if you haven't already, click the subscribe button and come to find out more about what the Traveling Homesteader is all about. Hey there, and welcome back to our arbor. And in this part of the arbor we have some nice red table grapes right next to our Concord grapes. And so I'll be showing you the difference between the two. There is a slight color difference, but there is also a bit of a taste difference. But as you may notice, it's continuing to rain, so I'm going to have to start picking some more to make sure I get in my harvest for the day. As you can see, in fairly short order, I got a nice handfuls of grapes. And so, with that in mind, these are the Concord grapes that we have. And because our vines have kind of intertwined, we've got a combination of both right next to each other. And so that's the kind of the benefit of having a grape arbor, is that you can put a couple of different varieties right within your own backyard. It not only helps you get fruit, but it helps kind of have a nice shaded area in very little space. So if you ever get the opportunity to do a grape arbor, try it, because it ends up being really pretty in a lot of different areas. Not only is it good for the grapes, but you can actually use the grapes for there's a different Greek recipe that you can use it. I want to say it's dolmas, so grape-filled leaves. But then you can also use the vines for wreaths. And so once you trim back the grapes, you can use the vines that you've trimmed to make grape vine wreaths or other interesting things to help kind of be, I guess, more practical or more creative with the things that you have. So now that I'm going to continue on with my grapes, I'm going to go find some more table grapes, or red table grapes, in addition to the Concords, to show you kind of the difference between the two. All right, I've actually come and found the difference. So the table grapes are these right here, and they're a slightly different color than the Concord grapes, but they're really close. In fact, as I get some of the Concords out, if you looked at them separately, you're like, they look the same. But when we put them together, they actually are slightly different. You can tell the slight difference between the two, but both together in juice makes a wonderful flavor. And so as I continue to pick what I need to make my grape juice, realize that canning grape juice is a little bit different process than some other things. And so we use a steam juicer, and you can get them in stainless steel or enamel, and both are good. We just happen to have a couple of enamel ones that we've had for a few years now. But when we do this, it's basically a steam canning, so we don't ever really crush the grapes like wines do, like the wineries do. So that's in part the difference in the process of grape juice versus wine. Not that either one is bad, but they're just a different process. And so with that in mind, I gotta keep going so I get my stash of grapes filled today. And then the next step we're gonna meet up with is actually putting these in the steamer. So now that we've gotten our harvest of our grapes from our arbor, kind of a large arbor, we have, I'm going to guesstimate at probably about between 50 and 70 pounds of grapes. And I ended up getting mostly the Concord grapes, but we do have some red table grapes and a very few green table grapes. Now, some of these table grapes that I'm mentioning are like these white ones here, and they actually came from a local vineyard that grows a variety of different types of wine grapes for sale local to us. And so it's kind of nice to be able to get that nice mixture, especially from local sources. So when doing your own grape vineyard, you have the opportunity to go and buy a variety of different grapes from the store. I happen to get some Concord grapes and some other red or purple grapes from my local Wilco store. There's Coastal Farm. These are some different stores by me where I am in Oregon. But you can also get some grapes through seed catalogs like Territorial Seed Company or Gurney's or a variety of different places. But make sure that you get a type of grape that is suitable for where you live. So with that in mind, where I live, the other aspect of growing grapes is usually they grow best on a slight slope. And so when you do your grape juice, or if you decide to get into winemaking, a friend of mine, Denise, and her boyfriend, Sergey, have a couple of wine grapes that they kind of play around with to make some of their own wine. So depending on what variety that you get, you'll have to decide where to plant them. And even the soil that you plant your grapes in will determine some of the taste. Not only will the soil determine some of the taste, but where it is in relation to other things matter too. For example, there's another man that I know that I got to know that the wine grapes at one end of a row would taste different than the wine grapes at the opposite end of the same row, just because of the angle of the line. And so the soil and location can change because of temperature. So those are some different things that you might want to consider, but they don't always have to play a big factor in just getting some grapes off for your own arbor. But with that in mind, we have here some examples of some steamers. Now, I ended up helping after I picked yesterday. I helped another friend do some canning of her own and picking of her own grapes. Now, off one grape plant that they've had at their home for years, she was able to get 70 quarts of grape juice like we're going to make today. And she used these two canners. Now, hers is this one, and mine is this one. Sorry, this one. And there's not much difference. This one is more of an aluminum, while this one's more of a cast iron. Not really a cast iron, but the enamelware. And so they're both pretty much the same. They both have water chambers in the bottom, and then they have the juice that comes into this location, and then the grapes are up top. So with that in mind, the premise is that the boiling water of the boiling water at the bottom will be, or the bottom will be on a flame or a heating element. That'll boil the water. The steam will rise, and it will allow the grapes to kind of burst and break out their juice and fall into this midsection here, and then it'll leak out. It's handy hose. Now this is a detachable hose, and that's okay. They're easy to replace, and we were able to get this at our local True Value store. So that's kind of nice to be able to have those replacement parts too. But you'll want to make sure that these get cleaned, like really cleaned after each time you're finished using them. So like once this is done for the season, I'll actually take some bleach to this and bleach it out. So that way I know that all the stuff in there gets cleaned and it's okay. And then when I store it, I'll store it in a place where it hopefully doesn't have too much problems, and then I'll probably end up using either bleach or vinegar again to clean this out for the next time I use it in the next season. So with that in mind, as a little bit of a look inside, so in this case, in this particular unit, what we'll do is we'll put the grapes here. And as you can see, there's a bit of a mesh bottom. And that's where the juices will leak down into the second section of this unit. And in this case, you can see that there's a hole here. And that's where the steam rises up from the bottom layer down here. And this is solid with a little, you might be able to see that hole there. And that is where there is a little stem, you can see there. That little stem goes through this hole to help kind of make sure they latch together. So once they're put together, that's kind of how it looks. The little knob goes there. Then the grape juice will come down into this section and drain out through the tube that will attach into another container that you can pour into your jars. So with that in mind, we're going to start our steaming. And now this is actually a really fun process. It's a little bit different than some of the other processes we've done. So as you've seen before in some of our other videos, we've done simple cutting and putting in water. When I say water bath, like with our peaches, we had a water citric acid combination that helps keep the peaches kind of nice and bright before we can. In this case, we're simply getting the juice out, and we'll see a nice purple color from our grapes. So let's get started and see how that turns out. Now that our steamers are all set up, what I've done is I've set it up so that they each will drain into these two canning jars. Now those are about half-gallon ball jars that you can buy at the store. They're a little bit scarce right now, but you can find them around. But what I'm going to do is take my grapes from here, put it in the top of each of the canners, and then we'll see how they steam in and make juice into each of the jars. Now that I have the burners lit, we're going to wait a little bit to see that the water starts to boil. But as the water starts to boil in the bottom portions that we just saw, I will be putting the grapes in the top part so you can see where they go. And then we'll wait and have it drip. And as that's going, I'm going to actually be putting the grapes from my cart here up into the top, and we'll then wait for the liquid to start to flow from the hoses. Now, as it starts to fill, it's going to take a little while, so I'll kind of do a time lapse so that we can have a little bit faster process. But I also want to point out that as we do this and other types of canning, because there's long-term heat going on underneath either the steamers or our water bath canner, or even our pressure canner, you're going to want to use basically like a propane setup like I have, or a gas setup in the house, or if you're using an electric burners, like the electric burner setups, there is a special extra high burner so that you don't burn your stove tops. You don't want to be using the flat glass setups for any canning, just because it ends up burning it out and potentially breaking the glass top that you have. So just a little FYI. So this is what each of the steamers looks like from the top view with the grapes in them. And as you can see, I've actually put in a couple of varieties within each. In this case, the white table grapes with the Concord, and you can even see a little bit of the red table grapes in there too. And by doing that, that's what's going to help with a different flavor. And as we do this, you can actually feel the heat coming up now, and it's going to drip down into this section, which then will come out the hose here and go down into the jar. So we're going to wait and see how the jar fills up. And in this case, this one is going to come down into that and go into that jar. And you'll notice on that hose that there's a little bit of a metal clip. And that is actually something that my friend thought up to help with the processing, to help stop the flow in case you need to switch out the jars, which is actually kind of a brilliant idea. So that's another option for you if you want to kind of put an added clip. You can do an alligator clip or one similar to this to help with the swapping out of jars so you don't have leakage. Now, with that in mind, seeing these will take some time to actually break down. So once they're all broken down, we'll check out what they look like from the inside. But you can get some added juice from these once they're done by pressing them a little bit. You don't want to do too much, otherwise you'll get some added, what I call junkus. And so you don't want added stuff in the bottom of your jars. You want to be able to have as clear a juice as you can. Geez, I wanted to come and check out the system too. Once all was said and done, I was able to get 12 half-gallon jars filled with juice, and that ended up coming out to 13 quarts and 23 pints of juice. We were really excited to have all this juice, and we still have some more to go. But I was able to put the date and content name on each of the jars and was able to put them up in storage. Thank you so much for coming today and checking out how to make grape juice with the Traveling Homesteader and Gyroscope Farm. If you haven't done so already, click the subscribe button to come back and find out how to do more things around your home. And thank you for coming today.